Hey guys, welcome to a short week. In the honor of it being short, I'm going to dive straight into what we are doing this week. We're going to talk about the area of certain shapes. So we're going to start with the area of a triangle. We're going to be on page 91 and 92. So 91 is going to be our practice page, and I'll show you the actual practice triangles in when we're done. So if you just want to set up page 91. And then 92 is where we're going to have our notes. And before we dive into our notes, I just wanted to do a quick review of what some of our triangles are. That way you kind of have that in your brain as we go into this, okay? So first triangle that we have is called an acute triangle. And an acute triangle is when all three of the angles on the triangle are less than 90 degrees. So what that means is that they are all going to be less than one of these corners on our graph, okay? So that's what an acute triangle looks like. Then you have a right triangle, and a right triangle has one angle that is equal to 90 degrees. And the way that a right triangle shows 90 degrees is it has a little corner like that. And so that is how you know that this equals 90 degrees, okay? That's going to be really important as we get into the area of a triangle. And then our last triangle is an obtuse. So an obtuse triangle is when there is an angle that is wider than 90 degrees. So it's not here and it's not in here. It has to go past that 90 degree mark, okay? So this one, this angle here is greater than 90 degrees, okay? So that angle right there. So if you see that arc, it's kind of part of a circle. That's kind of telling you where the angle is, okay? All right, so those are the three types of triangles that you will see, and you're gonna have to find the area for. So let's talk about how to find the area. So how to find area. So let's start with a right triangle. So I'm going to have my right triangle. And I'm just going to show you this trick. So if I have a right triangle, let's say I'm going to have 2y. I'm going to just do 2, we'll label it inches. And I'm going to do 3 tall. Okay, 3 inches. And I know that this is my right angle because it's 90 degrees. And then I'm just going to connect this, okay? So I could count up all the full squares and partial squares, but that kind of makes it tricky. So I'm going to have to get creative and figure out how do I find the area. Well, one thing that if we were in class, we would talk about turning this into a rectangle because we can see the complete rectangle a lot easier. So if I do that and I turn this into a complete rectangle, now I can find the area of this whole shape. And to find the area of this whole rectangle, I'm going to do 3 times 2. Okay, and I can clearly see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares in there, okay? But since I don't actually have this part of the rectangle, I need to get rid of half of it. So I'm going to actually divide my 6 in half because I only want this half. So I'm going to divide it in half, or by 2, and 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and so I'm just going to label this square inches because this is 1 square inch, this is part of a square inch, this is part of a square inch, and this is part of a square inch, okay? So because I was able to figure out the area of the rectangle and then I got rid of half of it, that gave me 3 square inches, okay? Okay, So let's try this with an acute angle and see what we come up with. Okay, so an acute angle, or acute triangle, I should say. And I'm just going to abbreviate now with this. So let's say I have I'm going to do a similar thing, 3 inches wide there. And I'm going to make my acute triangle, so I want this angle to be less than this, and I'm going to make this one less than, okay, so I'm going to go up here. Okay, and from top to bottom of my triangle, I know this is 2 squares up because I'm counting 1, 2. Oh, yeah, that's 2 squares. So that's going to be 2 inches high, and I know this is my right angle here. So on any triangle that is not a right triangle, you'll see a dotted line generally telling you how tall the height of the triangle is. So where is at the tallest point and what is the height to that tallest point, okay? So I can do the same thing because, again, I'm not going to be able to count up all of these pieces of squares. So I'm going to just extend my triangle sides out, and I'm going to turn this into a rectangle because I know it's easier to turn it into a rectangle or a square than it is to count up all of those pieces. And so now I see all of this, and I can count, oh, this is a 2, so it's 2 tall by 3 wide, and that gets me to 6. And I know if I were to take this piece and put this over here, it would be the same triangle. So I'm going to get rid of half of this triangle, or half of this rectangle again. So I'm going to divide it by 2 again, and that's going to give me 3 square inches. Okay, so again, if I were to move this piece of triangle over here, I'm going to end up with this kind of triangle, and this triangle and this triangle are the same. They're the same size, same shape, same area. So this is 3 and this is 3, which makes that 6, okay? All right, let's try it with an acute triangle, or sorry, obtuse triangle now. Okay, so obtuse triangle, I'm going to do 3 again, trying to keep this the same. So I have my 3 inches. And now I'm going to go not less than that 90 degrees, not exactly 90 degrees, but I'm going to go out just a little bit past it. Okay, and I'm going to connect my sides. Now, just like with the acute triangle, if you have an obtuse triangle, you'll usually see a dotted line showing you the height of that triangle. Okay, so there's my right angle. And so I know from here, if I extended that line and if I counted up, this would be 2 high, so 2 inches high. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did with my other 2, and I'm going to try to turn this into a rectangle. Okay, so this one is a little bit trickier because I have this little extra piece sticking out. So if I do this, I'm going to have to count in. So some people are like, oh, just extend this out here and extend this out here. Well, that's not keeping it inside of my 3 inches. And then I'm finding the area of something that has a base of 4 inches. That doesn't work. So I'm going to kind of pretend like I'm cutting this off, and I'm going to shift this part over here, and it gets all tricky. But basically what I'm doing is I'm extending my rectangle into that 3 by 2 because I'm still multiplying 3 by 2. So I'm doing 3 inches times 2 inches, and that's going to get me to 6. Okay, so if I were to take this little piece, I'm going to put it right here. Oops, wake up, mouse. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. And then this piece is here, and then this piece is doubled, okay? So that would be this part. I know it's really complicated, but this part here is this part here, and this part here is this part here, and there you go, okay? So it gets a little wonky, but it works. Okay, so now I know that 3 times 2, because 3 times this 2 high, made 6, and then I'm going to cut it in half because I don't want this half, right? I don't want this half of my triangle anymore. I just want this half, and that's going to give me 3 square inches. Okay, so what is the rule so you don't have to do this every time? Well, the easiest way to remember this is to do, I like to do the height times the base, but sometimes you'll hear it as base times height. So height of the triangle, okay, times the base of the triangle. So you're multiplying the height, how tall it is, times the base, times the base of triangle, okay? And then from there, you're going to divide whatever you get in half. And so you might see this in parentheses, and then you're going to divide it in 2 because you have 2 halves of a rectangle that you're going to get equals area. Okay, so another way you might see it written is you might see it like this: height times base divided by 2, or you might see it written like this: base times height over 2, so it means the same thing. Or even another way you'll see it, and these are all just the same way. This is your main way of doing it, but you might also see 1/2 of the height times the base. Okay, so that's basically cutting this in half and then multiplying it by the base. So sometimes you might see it written like that. Okay, but this is the way that generally you're going to see it for 6th grade, and I believe in 7th grade. So height times base first, and then you divide it by 2. Because remember, whatever you do have in parentheses is what you're going to multiply first, okay? Okay, here are some practice problems for you. So I'm just going to leave these up so you can kind of peek at those and get those down and then practice those, okay? So so height times base and then divide it in half is going to give you some practice. Okay, let's do, let's see, I have 2 of these, so we'll do this one down here together. Okay, so if I have this acute triangle here, if you need to go back because I moved too fast, get those measurements and you can. So I'm going to get the height of this triangle. Well, the height of this triangle is 4. And the base of this triangle is 10. So I'm going to multiply those 2. Well, 4 times 10 equals 40. And I know I'm going to have to divide that by 2. So I'm going to do 40 divided by 2, and that's going to equal 20. Well, I can't just be done. I can't just leave it at 20. I have to have that it's squares because they are squares. 1 square, 2 square, 3 square. So I'm going to have 20 square, and my unit of measurement is meters. Okay? So that's how you would do that. All right, I'm going to zoom out and let you copy the rest of these down. And make sure you go and practice on IXL. And then you do have a form today because it's a short week. All right, pop into my office hours if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow. Happy Tuesday.